Welcome back to Mama 3 and Me. This is the platform where we share everything about motherhood, marriage, and ministry. I am so glad to be here for another interview. And today I have the pleasure of interviewing one of my dear friends. We've been friends since college. We were the first people in our friend group to be in like serious relationships, first to get married. We had kids pretty close together. And when I was thinking about this conversation about doulas, I thought about her immediately because even her journey into being a doula was really inspired by her own birth journey. So I'm so excited to introduce to you all Denita Khalid. Welcome, Danita.
Thanks, Bree. I'm so happy to be here. So excited to talk about being a doula and what doulas do. And I'm ready to give out the information. So many moms need it. So I'm very glad that you're doing this.
You absolutely do. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Okay. My name is Denita Khalid. I'm a doula, a birth doula. I have two beautiful daughters who are 4 and 3. I am married to my wonderful husband, Chris, who supports us in the most fantastic ways. I'm a believer. I love Jesus. And I am just all about supporting moms and women through their pregnancy and birth experiences. I live in Indiana currently, in the Chicagoland area, but I'm from Chicago, Illinois. And I just love to give this information to different families who really need support and who desire support during their parent journeys. So I'm here today to answer all the questions.
Yes, and I have plenty for you. So my first question is, what is a doula?
Okay. A birth doula is a person who provides emotional and physical support to a woman and her family during labor and birth. We help provide information and resources to moms and families who are seeking those things out. It can be as specific as counseling for new parents or classes or Lamaze, things like that. We just help women navigate their pregnancy and labor and delivery. And our biggest job is to help moms have the most satisfying birth experience possible. So whatever that mom envisions for her birth, doulas are there to help carry it out.
I love that you ended with that, with whatever they envision, because I think when we've shared about this again with our own offline, with our own birth experiences, I know when I went in the hospital 4 years ago to have Geordan, I thought it was going to go one way and it went completely different. And of course, we know, especially as believers in Jesus Christ, that everything happens for a reason, that God was still with us in the birthing room. But I think for me, there was so much that I just did not know. So I had planned on going natural in my birthing experience. I was like, okay, I don't need the drugs. I had gone to a Lamaze class and I had my plan. I'm going to walk it out. And within minutes of being in there and actually going into labor, I told the nurse, like, oh, will I be able to walk around? She said, oh, no, you won't be able to do any of that. And so this whole time, this plan that I had, it went out the window. And I think if I had had a doula, she would have been able to give me the language or even the questions to be able to ask of, well, why am I not going to be able to do this? So what are some of the reasons why people should consider having a doula?
The biggest support that a doula can provide is advocacy. Doulas help prepare women to advocate for themselves, which is something that could have been really helpful for you, just knowing your birth story, because some providers are very quick to tell you what you can't do. And a lot of times they don't really navigate what you can do with you. And so doulas kind of help bridge that communication between providers and birthing people, by allowing women to advocate for the things that they want during labor. There's no real reason you shouldn't be able to walk around and find ways to comfort yourself during labor. And so doulas really push that advocacy. So we want you to advocate for yourself. And in those moments that you can't, we want to help prepare your partners to advocate for you as well. And then sometimes partners freeze up, or sometimes families don't have the words to say, or sometimes they're just in shock by what they're hearing or what they're being limited to. And a lot of times that's when doulas step in and say, hey, like, let's talk this out. let's compromise on some things. So maybe you don't want her to walk around as a nurse or as a provider. Well, how about we walk around for an hour and then we'll stay in bed for an hour and then we'll get back up and walk for an hour. So doulas can help navigate those birth experiences and really help advocate to make sure you get the kind of experience that you want, because this is the experience that a mom will remember for the rest of her life. If you ask any woman, they can tell you their entire birth experience, you know, whether they birthed yesterday, a couple months ago, or 20 years ago. So every woman I've talked to has been able to tell me each of her birth experiences. If she's had one child or five, she remembers all of them. And so that's what doulas really want to help encourage women to do, especially Black women. And, you know, that's a whole nother topic in itself, but that advocacy is very important for us.
You hit on something that I think is really important, and that I want maybe to help, what I think will help remove some shame, because I'm sure there's somebody who's watching this who felt like they were a great advocate for themselves, maybe in other spaces and arenas, but in that moment while they're giving birth, if they heard something that was shocking, or if things started going in a direction that they didn't see, they did have that moment where they froze up and just thought like, well, I don't know. Like and that's kind of what happened with me. I'm just like, okay, well, especially for someone who's a planner, this was my plan. You're telling me my plan is not going to work. So I can't even, in that moment, my brain wasn't even thinking of what are my other options, or what are some other ways that I could do this? Or again, what questions could I ask that would help me understand if there really is a reason that I'm not supposed to be walking? Because I think with me, she said that I could potentially get an infection from, I don't know. Again, that part, like, that's why I know I froze up, because I don't even remember what she said. I just remember being like, wait, what? I can't walk? That's how I was going to get through this. And so I think that can help remove a lot of shame, because I do know a lot of moms who have not necessarily had the birthing experience that they wanted to, who looking back will say, I should have asked more questions, or I should have done this, or I should have done that. And in that moment, that just might not have been your mindset. You're about to give birth, that you're going through all of these other thought processes. So it's okay to give yourself the grace and say, you know what, that didn't go well, but maybe for future children, if I do decide I want to have more children, here's what I want to do differently.
Absolutely. We do freeze up. I was somebody who researched very, very significantly during my pregnancies. And with my second pregnancy, my second birth, an anesthesiologist said something to me that made me completely freeze up. And I was somebody who had been okay with advocating for myself. I think I had done pretty well with it before. And in that moment, as I froze up, I had my husband and my sister there who immediately stepped in and spoke out for me. I didn't have a doula for that birth. I had people who I loved and trusted near me, and they helped to speak up for me. And I think that as natural as it is for their personalities to have spoken up, I think I also helped encourage them before I went into the delivery room to speak up for me during times that I couldn't. And so doulas can really help get families prepared for birth, because even though mom is giving birth, it takes a whole village to help deliver that baby in a safe way and in a way that the mom is really desiring.
So what is the process of finding a doula? Like, how early should you start looking? Then once people sign up, like, do services start immediately? Is there a specific month marker where they say, okay, now we're going to do it? Recommend, like, tell us more about the actual process.
Absolutely. Finding a doula it can happen in various ways. It can be a quick Google search in your area. It can be done through Facebook community groups in your area. It really depends on in what ways you're looking. So sometimes doulas advertise at doctor's offices, like the pediatrician. So if you have children already, you may see a doula card at the desk when you're signing your child out. There are lots of different ways to find a doula. There are websites out there that collectively showcase doulas and their experience, their location, and things like that. One of those websites is doulamatch.com. It's a website that I'm listed on as well. And so when you search doulamatch.com, you can search your area, you can search your zip code, your state, and I think it gets as advanced as searching a specific name. If you had someone who maybe popped up and was recommended, usually you can find these doulas on these sites to get more information about them and to know how to contact them and what they expect once you do contact them, or what to expect once you contact them. Find with one of the largest doula organization in the world, DONA International. We have doulas in just about every country across the world. The website there with the doula log that you can search doulas on, find them in your area or close, and you can narrow your search down that way. When you begin a process, typically a birth doula will have a consultation with you, and sometimes this consultation can act as an interview as well. So it's really important to have some questions ready for your doula to make sure that they're the right fit for you. I always encourage interviewing multiple doulas. Doula might not be the right fit for your family, and doulas understand that. Doulas are not offended by that. And we want to encourage you to find the best fit. And sometimes families aren't good fits for doulas, and that's okay as well. Sometimes you're looking for a particular birth experience that a doula is not well versed in. They practice in a different kind of way, and that's okay too. So just knowing what you want initially, and then searching out multiple doulas to help fulfill those birth experience needs or desires. So we start with a consultation and an interview, and we follow up with prenatal appointments. And so prenatal appointments happen usually in your third trimester, and there's usually 1 to 2 appointments. And we want to do the third trimester because we're giving you a lot of information that we want you to hang on to. And so the closer to labor and delivery we get, the more likely you are to retain that information and the practices that we do with you and your partner. Or it's never too early to hire a doula. You can find out you're pregnant and hire a doula the next day. There's really no time limit for it. But I would say that the most work that we do is usually in your third trimester. But once you hire a doula, most doulas require a retainer fee. And so once you sign a contract and get your retainer to that doula, they're with you from the moment you sign your contract to the moment you give birth, and even during postpartum. Really available to be text, called, or emailed throughout the entire time they're contracted with you. Lots of information that they can give you during this time. They answer any questions. Sometimes they can even help find providers. So if you find out you're pregnant and you haven't found a midwife or OBGYN, a doula can help with that as well. So doulas are so well-rounded in pregnancy and birth and labor. We can typically answer just about any question you have as far as information or resources.
Great transition, because I was going to ask you the difference, which I already know because we're friends and you told me. What is the difference between a doula and a midwife?
Yeah, this is a great question because people usually get them mixed up, or they assume that doulas are midwives. So midwives provide medical care for a woman during pregnancy, birth, and immediate postpartum. Midwives are medical professionals who can check on your baby. They can also do clinical checks and services like cervical checks to know how dilated you are or how ripe your cervix is. They can do blood pressure checks, vitals, fetal heart tones, and things of that nature. Those are not things that doulas do. And then there are several types of midwives as well. Some midwives are CNPs, which are certified nurse midwives, and they are trained nurses who are also trained in midwifery. So they have hospital-based training, and they can care for mom, baby, and the birth experience in any kind of setting. So this can be at home, it can be at a birthing center, or it can be at a hospital. You also have like traditional midwives and certified midwives who are not trained as nurses, but they are trained as midwives. some midwives are traditional and they practice more religiously, and some are certified and they have a certification in midwifery. So they don't necessarily have the medical training that a nurse midwife has, but they're certified and they have all the knowledge and skills to help deliver your baby safely. Midwives also catch babies, and doulas do not catch babies. And so I always say that doctors don't deliver babies, mom delivers babies. Midwives or OBs catch babies. And so doulas do not catch babies. We provide emotional, physical, and informational support during birth, pregnancy, and immediate postpartum. We don't do medical exams and things like that, but we provide that support and that advocacy, because if anybody who's gone through birth knows that it's a very emotional state to be in. And doulas help you manage your emotions and provide that physical support. And then we bridge that communication between doctors, midwives, and the patients to make sure that the mom is getting all the information that they need to have a successful birth, and to make sure that those moms are able to communicate well and knowledgeably to their care providers.
Such a good breakdown, because even knowing that there are that people have nurses training, I think not that people need the validation, because this is hard work and people have to get certified, but I think that some people don't even understand that there are midwives that have medical training. This is not just like, I went off to this retreat for a weekend and I came back and now I'm a midwife. Like, no, there are certifications and trainings and like schooling that is involved with this. I'm not just out here like, I think I'm going to be a midwife.
Right.
You know, because I think a lot of people associate midwifery and doulas with like a hippie lifestyle of okay, and yes, our bodies are built for this. God has designed our bodies for this, but I think people even associate anyone who would hire a doula or a midwife as someone who's just not educated, or and I think more often than not, these people are hyper educated, which is why they have the desire to work with a doula or with a midwife. And so I think that is such a good delineation, and you gave a lot of context for people who may not have any of that background information. And I think that even mothers who are thinking about this but probably have maybe the aunties or somebody in their ears thinking like, baby girl, no, we can't, no, you need a medical professional. They are medical professionals. So we just debunked that myth, which again ties into my next question, which is, what are some of the misconceptions that people have about doulaing, about midwifery, that you hear a lot, that you feel like you find yourself having to correct, or even things that you may just see on the internet?
Absolutely. The biggest one is what you just touched on, that you have to have a natural birth and kind of a free spirit lifestyle to even hire a doula or consider a midwife. And that's totally not true. Doulas and midwives support moms who are having natural births, moms who want medical births, or medicated births, I'm sorry. And by that, I mean who may want an epidural or who may want some kind of medicine to help them cope and get through labor and delivery. And that's okay. Doulas support all of that. Doulas support moms who are electing for C-sections. We can help prepare moms for C-sections, because it's not something that people really understand until they're going through it. And so just to be able to break down what a cesarean section looks like and the steps that are going to take place, and then how to care for baby afterwards and how to care for yourself. Doulas are supportive of any kind of vision that moms have for their labor and delivery. If you want to birth at home or in a birth center or in a hospital, doulas usually support all of those things. And that's where it comes in, like making sure you have a doula who fits you and what you believe in and what you want your birth experience to look like. That's kind of where that plays in too, making sure you have a doula who's willing to support you in those different ways that may be untraditional or may be super traditional. Another thing is that doulas replace your partners or your loved ones. And doulas are there to uplift your partners and uplift your family and help them to be a part of your birth experience. We're definitely hands-on. We're definitely there. Once we start support during a birth, we don't leave. Like, we're there with you, we're helping you through, but we're encouraging your partner to really step in and help you in those ways. The biggest hormone releases that promote labor and delivery and dilation is oxytocin. And if you don't know me personally, and I'm not a loved one, and I'm your doula or support person, I may not be able to provide that oxytocin that your husband can, or that your mom can, or your sister, whoever's there supporting you. We want to encourage those people to love on you during your labor and delivery and to help boost that oxytocin so that you can continue to contract and dilate and release and have your baby. I have a couple points on here. Some people think that doulas work against doctors, or that we are combative, or that we talk to your doctors for you, or we cause conflict with medical providers. And that's not what doulas' goals are. We encourage you to speak up for yourself and to advocate for yourself so that you can talk to your provider, because that's who has the relationship. That relationship is between you and your doctor, or you and your midwife. And so we want to encourage birthing moms and partners to help. We want to encourage them to talk to their doctors with the information that we may have provided. So that's where we filter in that information and we give it to you, and we fill mom and partner up with information so that they can advocate for themselves. And if a doula ever needs to step in, we're right there, and we're willing and ready to step in wherever we need to. But you guys are on the forefront. You're the ones who we want to communicate with your care providers. And then the other myths are that doulas only work with midwives, or only work with women who are seeing midwives. And we work with, like I said, anyone. We work with people who are seeing midwives or OBGYNs. Another one was providing medical exams. We don't provide medical exams, and we don't catch babies. And so those are a lot of the ways that we get confused with midwives as well.
Oh, good. Even the doulas are combative and are like arguing with your doctors. I think I have seen the reactions that some doctors have had if you tell them, oh yeah, I'm thinking about getting a doula. There's the eye roll, or like, okay, here we go with this. And honestly, that can just be based off of one poor experience, right? Because in the same way we're all humans and we make mistakes, there might have been a doula who just wasn't having a great day. So she was combative with the doctor because she's like, you know what, I'm tired of y'all, I'm tired of this, you know? So, but from that doctor's one experience, they're like, I guess this is what doulas do, you know? They yell, they are arguing, and all those different things. And I think even for me, I have learned in a good way that you're also just not handing stuff off to your doula to do, like, hey, you do this and I'm gonna sit back here and have this baby. Like you said, it's that advocacy. It is the you providing me with the language. And I think that in the same way, you can feel like you are powerless in your birthing experience if maybe it doesn't go the way that you thought. Even if your doula was hovering and making all the decisions for you, it would still kind of give that same experience where it's like, well, I didn't even get to say what I wanted because they're saying what I want. And even if they're saying what you want, it's just like, I kind of feel like I'm this third person in the room. Y'all know the baby's in me, right? I'm the one delivering the baby. But no, yeah, just talk amongst yourselves, I guess. So, right.
Yeah, and there are some doulas who step out of their scope of practice. And, you know, it's my goal and the group of amazing women who are a part of DONA, who I work with, DONA International. It is our biggest goal to make sure that we are supporting families to advocate for themselves and not working out of our scope of practice, not being combative with doctors, because the reality is we're all a team who is working together for the benefit of this mom and this baby. We all have a shared goal of healthy mom, healthy baby, but doulas have a goal, an additional goal of a great birth experience. Like everybody wants a healthy mom and baby, of course. And sometimes people or providers want that by any means necessary. And doulas are not by any means necessary workers. We want to make sure that we explore all of our options, but that we're also getting the birth experience that this parent desires. And we know that plans change, birth changes. I know you know that very well. So we want to help navigate those changes, but to still have an outcome of a satisfying birth experience.
This is not a question that I had pre-prepared, but I really want to ask, what is an encouragement that you would give to a mom who did not have her desired birthing experience? What's something that you would say to her?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would first let that mom know that things are not her fault. Like, like there's so many things that can happen in birth that nobody can prepare for. Um, and to take the burden off of, like, to take the blame off of you, take the blame off of yourself. Know that you did the best that you could for with the information you had and the experience that was going on. Sometimes things happen so quickly, we just don't have time to process, or we don't have time to really ask for what we really want. And so I just want to encourage those moms to pray about it first and seek healing for it, whether that's through prayer, through counseling. But I also want to encourage moms to grieve that experience and grieve the loss that they may feel, or the disappointment or the shame or anything of that nature. I think it's really important to take it in, grieve it. You know, it's okay to not be satisfied with your birth experience, but I also want them to work toward healing from that experience and breaking it down and knowing that some things were out of their control, and you only know what you know, and so hindsight is always 2020. That's been one of my most said sayings lately. Everything that we look at in the past, we see how we could have done it better. But in that moment, we did the best that we could. In that moment, you did the best that you could. You did the best with the information you had and with the providers that you had. And I will also say that some women trust their providers and kind of leave it in their hands. And that's okay too. It's okay to trust your provider. And it's okay to decide that you don't want to trust that provider anymore, or to look back at your experience and say, well, I didn't enjoy how this provider handled this, or I didn't prefer this thing that my provider said or did. It's okay to break that down and go through it and work it out with yourself or with a loved one or with a therapist, a mental health specialist. I just really want to encourage those mothers and those families to heal from it, but to acknowledge it.
Acknowledge it. I think that's so good, because I think a lot of us are told, like, well, at least you're here, or you and baby are healthy, or it could have gotten a lot worse, and yes, I'm healthy, yes, I'm here, but it can be traumatizing if birth experiences don't go the way that you thought. It can be extremely disappointing. And I appreciate that you even used the word grieving, because it's a very, as you shared earlier, this is a very emotional experience. And especially for a first-time mom, where it's like, that was the first time I ever gave birth and I can't get that time back, right? One of my friends, she had to go under. They had to put her under to deliver her baby. And so she didn't see her baby for hours after she delivered. And so you can't, and that's what she kept telling me. She's like, Brie, I can't get that time back.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important. And I appreciate that you said, like, acknowledge it. It did happen. Healing is available. And then giving yourself that permission to say, I don't like how that went. I am going to change things up, because especially if you're using maybe a doctor that your family always uses, or they've been your OB-GYN up until this point before you had children. And now you're like, okay, so you're great for, the gynecology part of it, but like the obstetrician, there's some things that still are to be desired, and you don't know, but you don't know that until you go through it. And so I think being able to see, okay, I am empowered enough to change what I don't like about this experience and do things differently, I think will prayerfully help a lot of people who are watching.
Yes, absolutely.
So last couple questions. Are doulas covered by insurance? And then can the doula who was in the delivery room also be your postpartum doula? Because I only found out about postpartum doulas maybe within the last 9 months, and my baby is 6 months. And I'm like, bro, I could, oh, wait, I wish that I had known about that. What? And Jordan's mom, my husband's mom, she had pretty much served as our postpartum doula because she stayed with us for a month. So that was amazing. But I'm sure that not every doula is also a postpartum doula. So share a little bit about that, please.
Absolutely, that's correct. And I wish I would have told you about a postpartum doula. So I apologize for that. But I'm glad that your mother-in-law was able to step in and help. That was amazing. So I'll answer the insurance question first, because that sounds businessy. So some, but not all insurance companies will cover a doula. Some insurance companies cover part of the cost and some can cover the whole cost. It really depends on your insurance company. I wish I had a more solid answer for that. But it really just takes calling your insurance company and having a conversation about it. Doulas are working really hard on a legislative level to be covered by insurance and to be considered medically necessary for mothers who have doulas or for mothers who have hired doulas. Quick side note, when the pandemic started, a lot of doulas were being pushed out of the hospitals because of safety risks. And so some mothers were birthing alone without their partner, and some were birthing with their partners who may not have known what was going on or what they were doing. And even if they hired a doula, the doulas were not allowed into the hospitals. And so that was a really scary time in the birth community because doulas help lower the mortality rate for moms, especially Black moms. And a lot of them were being pushed out of the hospitals. So doulas are working to become medically necessary and to be covered by insurance. Also, pay for a doula through a health savings account or a flexible spending account. Some people have those accounts with their insurance where they save up, certain dollar amounts, and that can be used toward your cost for a doula. But I will say, I'll add that if you can't afford a doula and your insurance company doesn't cover the cost for a doula, there are many volunteer doula programs across the country who support women who can't afford one. And so they will typically go through an agency to get this volunteer support. And most doulas offer a payment plan or a sliding fee scale based on a family's salary and what they can afford. So there are lots of ways to manage payment for a doula or manage those expenses. I think one of the benefits that we talked about earlier, one of the benefits of hiring a doula early is you can probably get in and make those payments if that's something that you really want for your birth experience. You can't necessarily afford a lump sum or a large fee all at once. The earlier you hire, the more time you have to work these things out with your doula. So I really encourage anybody who's interviewing a doula or having a consultation with a doula to ask about these payment plans and sliding scales and things like that during your consultation or your interview so that you can really understand what's expected of you on your end and you can work out how to make that plan throughout your pregnancy. Right into the postpartum doula services. So you pretty much said it, all birth doulas are not postpartum doulas, but there are postpartum doulas who are birth doulas as well, but there are also postpartum doulas who specifically work with families after delivery. Most times these doulas are not in the hospital or birthing space with you, but they'll be in your home the following days to weeks after. So yes, birth doulas can provide immediate postpartum care, while you're in the hospital, and that's usually like 1 to 2 hours after birth. So the moment you deliver baby, your postpartum begins. So doulas who were there with you throughout your birth stay during that time, usually until you get to your recovery room. I've stayed with families for up to 6 hours because that's just the kind of care that I give. I made sure that they were okay immediately after delivery, to the point where they got to their recovery room and have ordered dinner or breakfast or lunch, whatever time of day it is. I usually help them settle in, and then I'll tiptoe out. But afterwards, after that visit, I'll usually do 1 to 2 postpartum visits with this family. For a lot of doulas, they'll usually let the family choose whether it's day, night, and it's usually just a couple hours. I think a lot of doulas do during the day, like the business hours, but some doulas who are birth doulas will provide some support overnight for maybe 1 or 2 visits. And this support includes breastfeeding support, care for mom, care for baby, cooking, like cleaning, laundry, meal prep, sibling care, if there are any other siblings to the baby. So doulas kind of holistically care for family after birth, but birth doulas usually spend 1 to 2 days with the family, not consecutively. Postpartum doulas will spend an entire like 8-hour shift with a family. Sometimes families require 12-hour shifts for a postpartum doula. Just something that you work out with your postpartum doula at that time.
Excellent, excellent. So, with everything we shared, because we shared so much, y'all, I hope you guys had your notebooks out. If not, go back, watch it, take some notes. But what are the, I guess, top 3 takeaways you would want someone who's watching this, who's considering a doula, like, man, okay, I want to hire a doula because of these 3 things that Danita said? What would those 3 things be?
My first would be the advocacy support. I think that you should hire a doula to help you advocate for yourselves. Some moms feel like, oh, I advocate for myself on a daily basis. Like, I'm good. I don't need anybody to help coach me on that. Birth is a different story. Sometimes all of those skills go out the window. All of those characteristics go out the window. Sometimes you're not the same person you are every day as you are in your birthing room. And so having that person there to support you is super important. It's very important. The next number 2 would probably be making sure you're okay. The maternal mortality rate right now, especially for Black women, is so high that we need doulas in these rooms to help make sure that people are doing what they are supposed to be doing. Everybody, unfortunately, doesn't have your best interest at heart, but that's what doulas are there for. And I know that you hire doulas, but this work is so close to our hearts. And all we want is for mom and baby to be okay, to be heard, and to come out of this safely. 3 would be, number 3, let's see. I would say the informational support. The information that you can get from a doula is sometimes unmatched. And we encourage you to do a lot of research on your own, but doulas help provide a different perspective for a lot of things. And I think that that can be super beneficial to making sure that you have a satisfying birth experience and that you come out feeling like, okay, like I did this, like I did my research, I asked all my questions, I didn't have a question that I asked before. Like if a question came up, I asked it then and we talked it out and we worked it out. That can be so empowering for birth, to just know what you know and to have the knowledge to get through anything that comes your way.
So good. This was really good, Danita. I think I want to work with you on questions, and I know you have resources for this, but questions that everyone should ask their doula. So I'll make sure that we get together, and then I'll either make that something to link to in the description box or whatever, y'all. I'm gonna make sure y'all have the questions to ask, because I know if you're anything like me, I'm like, I have questions, but are these the right questions? Are there some other questions I should be asking, especially knowing now that not every doula is a great match for your family, and not every family is a great match for that particular doula. So I think that that would be a really great resource to give to moms or moms to be who are watching, or to husbands who are watching. You go if you're a husband watching this for your boo. We appreciate you. How can people stay connected with you, Danita? And if they wanted to hire you specifically, if they're in the Chicagoland area, how can they do that?
So I can be found on doulamatch.com right now. Again, my name is Denita Khalid. That's Khalid. And I can be found there right now. My website is under construction and should be launched in the next couple of weeks. I'm so excited about that. So then people can contact me directly through my website when that comes up. I can give you the link to that, Bree, if you want to put that in the comment section. I can also be reached by email at douladeni, DOULADENI @gmail.com. We can talk from there.
It was such a pleasure to have you. I love you already, you know that, but it's always cool to invite my friends to really speak on their areas of genius. And I know that you have been an advocate for women long before you were a doula. Y'all, we joke, Danita is one of the youngest in our friend group, but she's always been the mama of the group. I'm like, wait, I'm older than you. Why am I asking you to make me a grilled cheese?
And I love it, every minute of it.
It's great. We always tease that we were Danita's daughters before her actual children that she gave birth to. So thank you so much for coming on here. I feel like there might even be a part 2 interview. So I'm definitely going to be watching the comments and seeing what other questions people have. And then, like I said, everybody, I will make sure that I get a list of questions to ask a potential doula that you are planning on interviewing, because as you said, Danita, it's all about that information and advocacy. So thank you so much for joining us on Mom 3 and Me.
Thank you for having me.